Hello guys, the moment we have all been waiting for. Now I've built several computers in the past, but really none of them have been for myself, other than the FreeNAS build, but that's not really a computer I really get to use. It's more of a server. Now, the motherboard I chose was very hard to obtain because it's such a niche market and the motherboard is end of life, and once the manufacturer no longer manufactures it, or it sells out of all the marketplace, it becomes very scarce to get. So obtaining this motherboard was very hard. It was a bitch. On the entire internet, at least in the US, the only place this was available was there was a single listing on Craigslist, and the buyer actually wasn't that far from me. I'm in Ohio. He's in Erlanger, Kentucky, which is just right on the border of Ohio. I've emailed him several times. He was wanting $250 for the board, which is a really good price because this board is a $400 board. Emailed him several times. Of course, due to distance, it would have to be shipped. And I told him I would cover that. I would give him full MSRP for the board. He was asking $250. I was going to give him MSRP, which is $400 plus shipping cost on top. He ignored all my emails. His listing also threw in an i7, which you can sell on eBay for about $200. So I told him $650, take it or leave it. So $400 for the motherboard, $200 for the CPU, $50 for shipping, which is way more than enough. I mean, he could freaking overnight it. Still ignored my emails. So my friend emailed him as well, offering, and still ignored the emails. So I don't know what that dude's problem was. I know eBay says, ignore people that request shipping or whatever, but that's a bunch of bullshit in my opinion. I even told him, please list it on eBay. That way there's a paper trail on both ends. I know some people don't like to do transactions through Craigslist unless they have a paper trail and they don't get fucked over, basically. And I told him, I really recommend you list this on eBay and I will buy it ASAP. Still didn't want to take to that idea either. So, you know what? Fuck him. He lost $650. And he's probably not going to find anybody that's going to buy the board in his area. I mean, workstation boards are pretty niche. However, I fought up and down, and I was able to obtain a board. I came across a guy on eBay selling a lot of MSI equipment, a lot of MSI motherboards, and I noticed they all said manufacturer refurbished. Now, how do you get your hands on a manufactured refurbished motherboard? I mean, your average Joe can't just buy a manufactured refurbished motherboard. Usually those come from RMA returns. You get a manufacturer refurbished board if you do an RMA request. However, I noticed in his name, he had MSI in his name. So I'm like, this guy has to be affiliated with MSI or have contacts. And he posted a similar board, the X99A Tomahawk board, which is basically the consumer version of this board. So I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm really interested in the X99A Workstation board. The Tomahawk is very similar. I'm wondering if you can get your hands on one and send it to me. He's like, yes. There's one left at MSI. It's a refurbished one, but they have one available and I can do a special order. Now, special order means basically you're inside MSI. You have contacts. I did research on this seller, and he is a former MSI employee. And also noticed where he was shipping from or where he's located. He is 15 minutes away from MSI's repair shop. So I knew this guy. He had to be affiliated with MSI. Turns out he was a former employee for MSI's sales department. So I got the last X99A Workstation board from MSI. Now it is refurbished. Now I know that word sounds very dirty, but that can mean several things. means it's a return board that MSI repaired. It could be a store return, which most of the time people return stuff to the store because they don't want it anymore, or it was gifted to them. There's several reasons for a store return. Or it can be overstock. Overstock is when a manufacturer releases new products and they'll have all the retailers and stores take down the old products and they'll take the old products back. So I don't know what this motherboard condition was, if it was a return, if it was overstock, I don't know. But now with refurbished boards, people argue that they even have better quality control because the manufacturer will have to actually verify everything works on the board. Whereas if you buy a brand new board, it doesn't really have that attention to detail. They're mass produced. So people do argue refurbished boards are probably better, but I took the gamble, and based on what I've seen, they do a really good job at the refurbishing process, and they basically make it look like brand new, and everything looks like brand new. I mean, usually when you get refurbished boards, they won't have any of the original retail packaging. They won't have all the accessories like the I/O shield, all the cables, the manual, etc. It will just be the board. I got really fucking lucky. I got, as you can see, the original retail box and all included accessories. Now the condition of this board, the box, you can tell the box is used, but it's not in awful condition. And I think most of the slight damage in the corners and stuff, I think most of that is just from the shipping process. So as you can see, just little nicks in the corners, a little bit of, just very minor stuff. And you can definitely tell right here by this flap here. You see, just minor stuff, I would say. No big deal. And also, there's some kind of, as you can see, something right here was on top of this box at one time. Some type of adhesive or something. I can probably get that off. But, and this wasn't shrink wrapped either. But you can tell you can tell that it is a refurb used product. But overall, the box is in pretty decent condition. I mean, it's very acceptable. Now you're probably asking, what price did this former MSI guy have you pay for the board? $250 plus $20 shipping. I hopped right on it because this board is worth $400. So enough with the talking. I have been using laptops for several years. I've never really had my own desktop. We had a family computer that was a desktop. We now have a new family computer that's a desktop. I never actually had my own desktop computer. I've always had to deal with laptops, and I hate them. You can't upgrade them. Like my new ASUS one, you can't even dust it out without having to take the thing completely apart. Like, it has to be in pieces before you can dust it out. It's just a shitstorm. I'm ready for a fucking desktop, and this time I'm actually going to be going workstation. Now, you've seen a previous MSI Workstation build, my FreeNAS build, which utilized the C236A Workstation board, which that's starting to get scarce now too. They're still available at jet.com. If you're interested in that board, it's still available. As far as this board, good fucking luck getting it. You're not going to find it. You'll see one listed on Amazon from Ursaza, which is a Germany e-tailer. And I contacted these people, and they say, no, we don't actually have this product in stock. What we do is when you place an order, we request it from our distributor, and they may or may not have it. Most likely they won't have it, and we'll just fucking have to refund your money. And it's going to be a tedious process. Also, this e-tailer on Amazon marked this board up to $900 plus $50 shipping. So yeah, they are really milking the cow here. Highway robbery, basically. Because, these X99 boards, just in general, are like a high-end, HEDT, high-end desktop. Or HEDC, high-end desktop computer. Yeah, I think that's how it goes. These are like a Ferrari platform. Now you're probably wondering, why didn't you go with a modern platform? Well, because I need native Windows 7 support, native Windows 7 drivers. I did a computer build for my brother's friend Kevin, and we went with a modern platform. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't C299. I think it was C3 something, 390 or something like that. It was a newer platform, and basically no. Oh, that's my Coke. Basically, no native Windows 7 drivers. So we didn't have a native chipset driver. We didn't have no USB support. We were basically fucked. He had to buy an external USB expansion card. And yeah, with this platform, with the X99 platform in general, it's probably the last best platform that you can get for Windows 7 if you want native Windows 7 drivers, which is a must for me, because I'm not putting that fucking Windows 10 garbage on my computer. Thank you very much. So, and plus X99 came out in like 2014. This board came out in late 2016, so it's a few years old, but still has all the modern features that I wanted. Now you're like, why were you still hell-bent on the MSI one? ASUS, Gigabyte, and ASRock, etc., they make X99 workstation boards too. Well, those ones didn't tick off all the check marks on my list. They didn't have every single feature that required. Some of them were missing something, or one was missing this. This one checked all the check boxes. It had everything I wanted, had all the features I wanted. So I was hell-bent on this one, and this one is very scarce to get. So are the other boards. The other boards are starting to get scarce too. But I picked this board up for $250 for my former MSI employee on eBay. It was pretty interesting. So anyway, the build is going to consist. I have the build list right here, and I also include a link in the description of the components for this build. We're starting out with the motherboard, the MSI X99A Workstation. So for the case, I went with the Corsair Obsidian 750D Airflow Edition, and that's actually the case we used for Kevin's build. And as much as I beat up on that case, it does have a lot of features that I like. As far as the hard drive caddies, they're shit, but I'm not going to be using them because I'll be using SSDs, so that's not an issue. But as far as case, I won't explain all this stuff in detail until I actually get to that component. Like when I get to do a video on the case, I'll explain why I fully chose the case, what things I like about it, what things I dislike about it, why I chose it compared to other cases on the market, basically. So that's the case I ended up going with for several reasons. Yes, it has cons. Every case has cons. Things I dislike about it. That will all be mentioned in said video. The motherboard, which we have the MSI X99A Workstation board, which we're going to be unboxing and taking a look at. And inspecting, I should say, because these refurb boards, people say you always got to check for make sure the USB 3.0 headers, none of the pins are bent. That can be a problem sometimes. And CPU socket, you want to make sure there's no pins bent. However, I believe with the X99 board, the pins are actually on the CPU, so that shouldn't be an issue at all. So that's good. Some people say the DIMM slots, sometimes they'll have problems with the RAM DIMM slots. Maybe there's like a solder joint or whatever. Check those. Check all your I/O ports. You gotta be thorough with refurb boards. But I have full confidence that this is gonna be flawless. I already looked at it. I looked inside. Everything looked in good condition to me. The heatsink or the CPU, I'm going to be using Xeon on this because I'll be using ECC RAM. And that's another thing about this board is this board, since it's a workstation board, it supports ECC RAM and Xeons and what have you, right? I'm going to be starting out with the Intel Xeon E5 1650 V3 at 3.5 gigahertz. I have that and it's on the way. I got it for $170. That's a really good price. Now, with Xeons, like I said, I don't want to go too far in detail until I actually get the part and do a video on the part. But Xeons usually have a shit ton of cores and a slower clock rate, which isn't good for gaming, or just productivity in general. The things that we run on a regular desktop, they don't utilize a lot of cores. They're not coded to use 22 cores or whatever. They're coded to use like 4 cores or 6 cores max. So you want to get a Xeon that doesn't have a shit ton of cores and a faster clock speed, basically, to get that middle ground if you're going to be gaming or doing desktop related things, So I started out with this. It has a good single core or single threaded performance, a decent one. I mean, these Xeons, they're never going to, single core performance, they're never going to perform as good as a consumer i7 or i9. Those just fucking fly when it comes to single core performance. But this one right here is pretty decent. But I will be upgrading the CPU later when this other CPU comes down in price. Right now, it goes for $1,400, which I don't want to drop because the price to performance ratio isn't that great, So the Intel Xeon E5 1680 V4 at 3.4 gigahertz. This is slightly slower clock speed, however, it performs a lot better. We're looking at 8 cores instead of 6 cores, and better single core performance and better overall performance. We're talking I think it has 17,000 on Passmark and 2,200 on single core performance on Passmark. Okay, now for the heatsink, I'll be using the Noctua NH-D15. The fans, I'll be using 3 Noctua NF-A14 FLX. Now for the fans, this motherboard has 5 fan headers total. It's going to have 1 PWM-based header for your CPU fan, and it's going to have 4 voltage mode headers. Now, in voltage mode, you're going to want to have fans that you utilize 3 pins and use voltage mode, not PWM. So that's why I'm going with these FLX versions, which are 3-pin voltage mode fans. I'll also have a ×1 Noctua NF-A12 by 25 FLX. And I do have those fans on the way. I have the Xeon on the way. Like I said, I have a lot of components already paid for and on the way. And I will be making videos on each component and explaining why I chose said components. And of course, you got to have a Coca-Cola. For RAM, I went with 128 gig of Crucial ECC unbuffered 266 megahertz RAM. This is module part number CT16G4WFD8266. You buy 8 of these modules, and you'll give you 120 gig of RAM. Basically, my philosophy is going to max the board out. If you have a board and you can afford to max it out, max the board out, because with these modules, I get all my RAM from Crucial. I don't go with anybody else. These modules, say you want to upgrade in a couple years. Say I went with 32 gig and I want to upgrade to 64. These modules will go EOL in about a year or 2. And you can no longer buy the modules. And you want to have the same modules. So if I wanted to upgrade 32 gig of RAM or 64 gig of RAM and I had 32, I'd have to buy all new modules. I couldn't just pop in another 2 modules. I'd have to buy all 4 modules, or I'd have to buy it all over, and that's more expensive. And also, depending on how old the platform is, as it ages, DDR5's coming out now. I don't think DDR4 is going to go anywhere anytime soon, but some older platforms that were using like DDR3 or DDR2, they're no longer making RAM for those platforms anymore. So I don't want to have to deal with that. Max the board out, never have a problem with RAM, so I'll never have to worry about upgrading the RAM. So that will never be an issue. 120 gig of ECC RAM, that's overkill. But I will put to use, I'll be able to actually use VMs, store law of cache in the RAM, and lots of projects. Like once I get the RAM, I'll explain why I chose the RAM, why I went with that much, etc. I want this video to be about the motherboard, not about my build, but this is going to be kind of like a build / motherboard video. For the storage, I went with a Samsung 960 Pro SSD 1TB. That's going to be for the OS only. And you're probably like, okay, why are you using a SATA-based drive instead of NVMe? Because this does have NVMe support. Well, yes, you can boot Windows 7 64-bit with UEFI and use GPT partition tables. While that will work, there are some caveats and some problems, such as there's no Windows activator for UEFI or GPT partition tables for Windows 7, meaning you have to get a legit key, and you can't get a legit key anymore. People sell keys on eBay, there's keys on Kingwin and these other sites, but they're really gray market keys, and in a year or two it will deactivate. I don't want to deal with the bullshit, so I'm gonna install this on a SATA-based SSD, the OS, and it'll be via MBR, and I'll be able to use Windows Loader and not have any issues. Cut through the bullshit. Plus, also, if you use older expansion cards or stuff that they don't have a GPT, they don't have a UEFI driver, that like have legacy cards, you'll have problems. So the OS is going to be via MBR, which is more and fast. I've used SATA SSDs such as the 960 Pro in the past, and that's not going to be an issue. I don't need NVMe based speeds just for the OS. Now, I will also be picking up a Samsung 970 Pro NVMe M.2 1TB drive. That is where I'm going to offload all the programs onto and the app data, etc. So I will still get the low latency and the fast speeds of NVMe, but the OS itself will be on the SATA-based SSD, if that makes sense. There's reasons why I did that. And once I get the drives, I'll explain more in detail why I did that. And I'm just trying to glance over this stuff. GPU. For the graphics card, I went with an MSI GeForce RTX 2060, 6GB GDR6 Ventus 6GOC, that's what they call it. The reason I want this card, it's currently available for $350 and performs in between the 1080 and the 1080 Ti. So it's pretty much the best value card you can buy right now. Do not go with the 2080s. This is a 2060. The 2080s have a lot of problem. They are a botched product. They have memory issues, and one person's EVGA 2060 card caught on fire. So don't go with 2080 cards. They are a botched product. This card has, I did my research, no issues, best value for the money currently. $350 for a card, that is actually cheap for a GPU. Whereas if I was to get like an older card, like the 1080 will, one, performs worse than this card, and two, is going to run me about $800 or $900 versus $350. Do the math. You can probably see why I picked out this card. Plus, it's MSI, and I kind of like to match the brands, you know, the GPU and the motherboard. You don't have to match the brands, but that's just nitpicking. And being an MSI fanboy, I'm going to put an MSI-based graphics card in it. For the power supply, I'm going to use a Seasonic Prime 750. I was going to go with the Prime 650 fanless one, but given the graphics cards and 3 optical drives and everything I'm throwing in it, and expansion cards, I'll be using, more wattage. I'll need to have the 750. 750 is going to be closer to where I need to be. For the network card, the NIC, I'm going to use a Mellanox Connect X2 at 10 gigabit using fiber optic to my MikroTik switch. For the optical drives, yes, I put optical drives in the build because I'm not a dumbass. CDs are definitely where to be when it comes to audio. So, and I do a lot of DAE, digital audio extraction. So I'll be using probably one of the best SATA-based drives, one of the most accurate SATA-based drives for DAE, digital audio extraction. This drive is at the top of the list of accurate rip as being one of the most accurate drives. I mean, as far as accurate, it means it's able to achieve accurate rips more than a other drive. Like it can read through the scratches better, basically. It has better CRC air correction, better air correction. So I have the Lighton iHas 124-14. You're gonna get that from Newegg, $20. Like all these drives, when it comes to CD, DVD drives, they're all $20 a pop. So I got that. The Pioneer BDR-S08J, probably one of the best Blu-ray drives you can buy. Guess what? Can't find it anywhere because this is a Japanese only version. Not available on eBay. This is scarce. I have watchers on eBay. I have watchers on Amazon. I have Google Alert set. When this fucker becomes available, I'm going to have to drop on ASAP because this thing is scarce. So that drive I don't currently have. The other drives I do have. The ASUS DRW-24B1ST as well. That's a that'll also be an optional drive I'll throw in there, kind of like a backup drive or whatever. So, and it's one of the best rated ones on Amazon, and it's actually towards the top of the list on the Accurate Rip database as far as accuracy is concerned. It's not the best performer, but it did make it on the top list of accuracy. For the audio interface, I'm going to have the Lynx AES16E. This will give me AES EBU, digital audio, in and out, 16 channels. For the DAC, I'm going to use a FiO Q5, using line out. FiO Q1, which I own. A shit Yiggy, or it's hard to say this word. A shit Yiggy, I'm just going to say Yiggy, because that's the nickname, via AES EBU, which that will connect to the audio interface, the Lynx AES16E. The ADC, that's to be determined. I don't know what ADC I'm going to go with yet. The microphone, Rode NT1A, starting out. A Neumann TLM102, a Neumann TLM103, and a Neumann U87. Those are just mics I'd like to get. Preamp, the Avalon VT737 SP, probably one of the best preamps out there. The webcam, Logitech C930E. Monitors, I have limited desk space, and so I can't put like really nice big ass monitors. I have to be in the 22 to 24 inch range, and at that size 1080p is going to be just fine. So these are ×2 Acer Professional B247Y 23.8 inch 1080p IPS panels, and they have a pretty good response time of 4 milliseconds. They also cover sRGB color space, I believe 100% of that. They are a professional monitor, basically. It's IPS panel. So, and those also have DisplayPort available. A lot of monitors only have DisplayPort when you're getting in like the high-end monitors. It costs $600 or $800. I don't have $600 or $800 a piece for monitors. That's gonna be too expensive. These monitors are $200. They have DisplayPort, they're IPS panels, good response time, the size I need. They check all the marks. So these are the monitors I'm going to be getting. If you're going to do a build, you have a big ass desk, you have space, you can get bigger panels, nicer panels. These are pretty nice panels for the size and the cost, $200. Hopping right on them. UPS is going to be the CyberPower CP1500 PFC LCD. I have like 5 of these. OS Windows 7 Ultimate 64-bit, of course. Duh. Keyboard and mouse to be determined. So there's my list. Sorry I rambled this off. I will put a timestamp in the description so you can just hop right to the unboxing and get past all my mumbo jumbo about the workstation build. So this is my desktop build. I already got everything picked out. I do make revisions from time to time, like, ooh, I might go with this instead, or I might go with this instead. But I think I'm pretty set on most of these parts. So I'll be doing a dedicated video for each part, and I'll explain why I chose it and how well it will go into this whole interface here, or this whole platform. So without further ado, enough talking, enough bullshit, we'll get right on to the motherboard. So as you can see, they did give me the original retail box. On the front, we have MSI, and this is like their global workstation logo. They use this on their even workstation laptops and stuff, which I know, kind of weird, right? Workstation laptop. X99A Workstation Motherboard. It uses the X99 chipset. It says Intel Core inside. Ooh, there's no really, they don't give you a free CPU. But this does support consumer grade CPUs. Such as the i7, I believe it's the 6950X. That's what everybody uses for X99 now when it comes to consumer. So we have X99A Workstation, MSI, X99A Workstation. On the top, you just have your language stuff, right? Pretty basic. And on the side, you have basically your serial number, the part number, and you gotta love California putting this stupid cancer shit on everything now. Everything gives you cancer. You're bound to die eventually. They throw it on here. I don't know if it's because the packaging materials have a certain something in them. I don't know. But everything gives you cancer nowadays. But what you really want to see here is you probably want to see the back of this bad boy, right? So on the back of this, we have the motherboard. It has a PS2 port. It has everything. NVMe supports. I believe it's PCIe 3.0 times 4. Of course, it depends on how many PCIe lanes you have from your CPU, which both CPUs I chose have 40 PCIe lanes, which is what you want. ECC supports registered DIMMs and unbuffered DIMMs. Dual Intel NICs, which is good. Don't care about the audio because I use DACs. And I'll be using a professional interface, which will completely blow away anything on board. SLI support, USB 3.1 Gen 2. So like I said, this is probably the most modern board you can get. That's going to have full Windows 7 support as far as drivers and stuff, and as far as the platform. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a newer platform that has native Windows 7 drivers, but that's becoming really hard to come by now. Hence why I chose the X99 platform, which is kind of like a Ferrari platform, as people tell me. So USB 3.1 Gen 2, so that's pretty modern. It is PCIe 3.0. 4.0 came out like just a year after this board came out, so that kind of sucks. But you're not going to have any problems with 3.0 as far as PCIe. High quality caps and chokes and everything. And this also has an RGB header, Mystic Light. Woo! Why they put that on a workstation motherboard, I don't know. This motherboard can double as like a gaming or a workstation blend type of motherboard. Like if you wanted to make it a gaming motherboard, you basically could. You can throw in a consumer i7, use consumer RAM and run it at freaking the 3200 megahertz, which is basically the sweet point everybody runs a RAM at. Or you can use it as a workstation board, which is what I'm going to be using. So that's the back of here. I obviously overlaid a high quality image if you want to pause, look through it, which you probably do. Because literally there's been a lot of people that have done reviews of this board, and the pictures that they take are like crappy. You can't they're low res pictures. Like the back of this board, I was looking on like a tiny ass picture. I couldn't make any of it out. I'm providing high quality pictures, and this board has like no love on YouTube. We're gonna change that. This is the first video where this board's actually being unboxed and looked at, in detail. So just like the C236A workstation board, that had no love, and I gave it some love. I might do another video on it too. So anyway, let's begin the unboxing. So I'll just open this up, and as you can see, this styrofoam or whatever on the top right here, MSI kind of I guess MSI put that in there. to help stop it from breaking and shipping or something. But I don't think you normally get this in the original retail box new. I don't think you get this. I could be wrong, but as you can see, the motherboard is in there and an anti-static bag. And it's in a cardboard holder like this. So I'm going to set this aside right here. And as you can see, they included all the accessories and stuff. So they include all the cables, all the SATA cables, the SLI bridge. I mean, look at this. They included the quick installation guide thing. They included the SATA cable labels, if you want to label your SATA cables. They included an I/O shield, which I thought this would be used, but it looks like it's a brand new I/O shield in a bag, which is nice. And I obviously have the part number as well. Oh, and it's one of those that are like squishy. It's interesting, but this looks like a brand new I/O shield. So maybe they have these laying around. When they do a refurb board, they'll throw in new accessories, I guess. Thanks for choosing an MSI product. The driver DVD. And yay, a paper manual. I love having a hard book paper manual. Although I did print out the important parts of the manual on paper, just because this will be better for the video, for you guys to read, and better for me to read too. But I do like having that they had this, because literally when you work with refurb boards, they generally just give you the motherboard. They don't give you anything else. This is like a full product here. I mean, it has everything. So if we look at the unpacking, page here, as you can see, we're going to make sure that we have everything that's listed on here. And in the box, you just have the cardboard thing, cardboard separator. That's all that's left in this box. So let's see if they included everything that they detailed out here. So we should have the motherboard. We do. They should have included the drivers and utilities disc, which they did. The motherboard user guide or manual, which they did. The I/O shield, which they did. 8 SATA cables. So I got 2, 4. Okay. So instead of 8 SATA cables, I got 4. Okay. So I didn't get all the SATA cables, but no big deal. I'm not going to be using their SATA cables anyway. I'm going to be buying monoprice ones. 3 SLI bridge connectors. And there's 1. There's 2. And then there is 3. So yes, they did include all the SLI bridge connectors. As you can see, they have MSI branding on them. And I am messing with the autofocus on this camera. I still got to get comfortable with how this camera works. They should have included the RGB LED extension cable, which they did, but I'm not going to be using RGB. But if you want to get like an LED strip, and you want to be able to control it from the motherboard and everything, you can hook up an LED strip to this motherboard with this RGB header and use Mystic lighting and sync up the color with your graphics card and your RAM and everything else with your RGB strip that you put around your case or whatever inside your case. And they should have included the SATA cable labels. So they did include everything except 4 SATA cables. Big whoop. But basically I have a complete package. And as you can see, thanks for choosing MSI. No problem. I'll choose them again. So I'm going to put all this stuff back in the box. I do like that they included a brand new, it looks brand new to me, I/O shield. I mean, it's sealed in this bag. So that was really nice of them to do, was include that I/O shield. I mean, As far as the reforged, I mean, all these accessories look brand new, sealed in the bag, except this manual. Just the cover of it does look like it's used, but the manual itself looks in really good condition. I mean, there's a slight bent on that up there, but literally, there's no bent pages, you know. I mean, the manual itself is in good condition, just the cover looks a little used. But other than that, I mean, so far, for a refurb board, refurbished board, whatever you want to call it, they've done a good job. I mean, you normally don't get this with refurbished products, but they had the complete package here. Now on eBay, you will find 0 listings for this board. I told you this board is extremely scarce to get. It's really hard to get this board. It really is. I looked in the sold products. This board was only sold 1 time, and it was a refurb board just like this, manufacturer refurbished. However, it just had the board. And on the board, there was some scuffing on the I/O cover, but clearly no big whoop. This one looks to be in better condition, and I have the complete package. So, what you all been waiting for? You want to see the motherboard, right? So they put this motherboard in this cardboard holder thingy, right? And the motherboard is in an anti-static shield. Now, I haven't taken this motherboard out of the anti-static shield. I've just seen it through the anti-static shield. So I don't know what it looks like, but I didn't see anything broken. It looked okay. So to get this board out, I always pick up the boards from the heat sinks. And the board seems to be in there a little bit. Oh, and they have like a foam padding on the bottom, which is kind of nice. So as far as the motherboard, I have the motherboard out. Let me zoom out so you can actually see what I'm doing here. So I have the motherboard out. Let's take it out of this anti-static packaging. Okay, so as far as the anti-static sheet, you'll see a lot of these like dimples or whatever in the bag. That's because of the copper traces. Now let me look at the back of this, see if I see anything of concern solder quality wise. Now, this is something I noticed on this board, or on this. It's not using a motherboard seal. Usually it has a motherboard seal. So that's interesting. So let me get tape and we'll get this board out of the anti-static bag. Okay, so I was finally able to break it free. We're gonna pull this motherboard out of here. There we go. Woo! People say don't put it on the outside of the box, or I mean the outside of the anti-static sheet, because it has different material, they say. She is a beauty in real life. Now I'm looking at this board. I'm just now looking at this board out of the anti-static sheet, and honestly, it looks brand new. So they always say check the USB 3 headers. So I'm looking at one, and no bit pins. All the pins look intact. I'm gonna look at the other header. No bent pins. Looking for any cosmetic defects, and I see none. All the RAM slots look intact. All the headers look intact. It's good. We even have the M.2 screw, because usually you don't have those. Usually somebody will lose one of those. I'm just looking in beauty right now, really. And as you can see, everybody usually says check the USB headers, right? Here's a USB 3.0 header, and it is intact. The other one is right here. It's intact too. Just give you another view. This board, Now, on the other refurb board that I did see on eBay, like there was only one listed, there was some scuffing right here. This board, there's no cosmetic defects. I haven't seen a cosmetic defect yet. There's no cosmetic defects on that. I mean, the board, no cosmetic defects on that. I don't think this socket has pins, so I'm not going to open it up. If it had pins, we would check. And I noticed there's a little yellow sticker there, which I can't really get zoomed in on, and it says OK. But yeah, as far as this board so far, I don't see any problems. We have our M.2 slot down here, and as you can see, they included the screw on there. The screw's on there and intact. I'm going to guess that this battery is probably KTS brand. Why are all motherboard BIOS batteries KTS brand? I don't know. We have our chipset heatsink, which I don't see any defects there. Like I said, this board, it looks fine. And we are going to walk through this board now. So we did the unboxing. We took it out of the anti-stack bag. So this socket, I haven't worked on a socket that has levers on both sides before, so that's going to be a new one for me. I've never worked on a board that had dual levers. So as you can see on this paper here, it has levers on both sides. I've never dealt with a board that has levers on both sides, or a socket I should say. So that's going to be a completely new one for me when I get the CPU and install the CPU in this. Probably going to watch a few videos beforehand just to get a little bit more comfortable of how that works, which lever you're supposed to do first, if it matters. Because I don't want to break the board or break the socket or bend any pins on the CPU while installing it. That'd be awful. So let's go over the specifications of the board. This video is supposed to be all about this board, and I'm wasting so much time. I know I'm dragging it out because I'm just now getting to see it, and I'm just in awe, you know, beauty. Though they've seen this board in real life, just the colors pop. It looks brand new too. I'm looking at the board, like you can tell if it's something's been used. This board literally looks like a brand new board. I got away with a $400 board for $250. So this supports Intel Core i7 Extreme Edition processors for the LGA 2011-V socket. This supports Xeons like the E5s, etc. Supports Intel Turbo Boost Max Technology 3.0, which is a good thing because we will be using that for our upgrade CPU. For our starter CPU, it will be 2.0, which, I mean, if this supports 3.0, it should also support 2.0. It should work. The chipset is Intel X99. Supports up to 128 gig of RAM, ECC, unbuffered or registered memory. It goes up to 3333 megahertz. But with the RAM we got, ECC RAM, you can't really get ECC RAM that fast. ECC RAM that we got is 2666 megahertz. However, with Intel Xeon CPUs, Intel Xeon CPUs don't really have memory controls that go that fast. With our starter CPU, we're going to be clocked down to 2133 megahertz. With our upgrade CPU, we'll be at 2400 megahertz. So our RAM is actually going to be downclocked. But like I said, RAM speed's not going to be an issue. You know, you don't really worry about the RAM speed. And even then, it doesn't really affect gaming either. When I get the RAM, I will fully talk about this. Okay, the RAM speeds and why I chose the RAM and the limitations, etc. So this is quad channel. So you'll have 4 channels. This has 8 RAM slots, as you can see. And when you're looking at a board with 8 RAM slots, it's a beauty to look at. That is a real motherboard right there. 8 RAM slots. And we're going to populate all of these. We're going to max these fuckers out. We're maxing the board out. The board supports up to 120 gig of RAM. we are going to go that high. We are going to max it out. And it also supports XMP. That's for overclocking your RAM, make it go at faster speed. You're not going to be able to do that with ECC RAM. As far as our expansion slots, we have 3 right here. You can see they have the MSI shields on them. They do that to make them stronger and less interference, they say. These are PCIe 3.0 times 16 slots. And depending on your how many PCIe lanes you have with your CPU, which we have 40, which is good, that will determine what speed these will all run out, these 2 bottom ones. And we have 2 PCIe 2.0 times 1 slots. Of course, it supports 3-way AMD Crossfire, 3-way NVIDIA SLI. This thing has a shit ton of USB ports. So let's go over the board. So let's have a look at the back I/O. So for the rear panel I/O, we have one PS2 combo port. Now, for my builds, I require it to have a PS2 port. For combo port, that means you can either plug a keyboard or a mouse into it. You can also get Y adapters or splitters, or you can natively connect both a keyboard and mouse at the same time via the PS2 port. Usually you have 2 dedicated PS2 ports. This one has a combo. I would have liked it to have 2 dedicated ones, but as long as it has a PS2 port, I'm happy. It does. Right below it, it has 2 USB 2.0 ports. And next to it, you can probably barely make it out. It has a clear CMOS button. Now, why do you have a clear CMOS button? That is for overclockers. When they overclock their CPU and their system is fucking up and they can't boot it or whatever, they can't post, they clear their BIOS and start again, basically. So that's why that's there. I wish it wasn't on the back of the board because you can accidentally hit it. But it should be recessed far enough that that doesn't become an issue. So I wish they would have put it somewhere else, but that's kind of common on a lot of high-end motherboards. They'll have a clear CMOS button on the back to where overclockers can, easily reset the BIOS if they fucked the setting up when they were overclocking. Now, moving on, we have a USB 3.1 Gen 2 port, and then below it we have a USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type C port, which you can probably barely make out. So as you can see right there, it has a USB 3.0, or 3.1, USB-C port. Moving on, we have 2, right there, sorry. I'm looking at the paper and the camera at the same time. We have 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1. So we have a Gen 2 and then we also have Gen 1. And then we have our dual Intel NICs. We have 2 USB 3.1 Gen 1s again. We have 2 USB 2.0 ports, and then we have all our audio stuff, including our Toslink SPDIF out, which that will not be used. And as you can see, it has this nice little workstation shroud. It's a really beautiful looking board. As far as the headers, we have 6 SATA 6 gigabit ports right there. And then we have more right here. And then we have, I believe there's our SATA Express ports. We have a USB 3.1 header. This will give us 2 ports. We have U.2 connector right there. We have another USB 3.1 header. We have our 24-pin motherboard power. We have, of course, we have our RAM. We have a couple fan headers right here. We have our CPU fan header, which that is PWM. We have a pump fan header, which that's just another standard sys fan header. That's going to be a voltage mode. We have our 8-pin CPU power. We have our titanium choke right there, right beside it. We have another sysfan voltage mode connector for fans. I believe that's a jumper. There is our two USB 2.0 headers. So right here, we have JFP1. That's a front panel header. And JFB2, which is right here, right there, that is another front panel header. We have another fan header in here hanging out. There's our expansion buses. We have our LGA 2011-3 CPU socket. And you can see the two retention levers, which I've never really dealt with before. We have our M.2 slot, which just will take NVMe or SATA. And of course, they included the mounting screw, which is good. You see, it can take various lengths of M.2 cards. Oh, we also have our debug LED right there. And they also include an onboard power and reset button, which is kind of nifty, huh? And I believe this J LED is for our RGB, our Mystic Lighting RGB. Woo! We have a BIOS toggle right there to switch between different BIOSes. Interesting. Not sure what these chips are. WinBond. Oh, that might be EEPROM. Of course, we have our made in China. We have our chipset heatsink. Oh, heatsink right there. So there's the board. I mean, we looked over most of the stuff. I'd like to go in further detail later. Now, I noticed with how they're doing RAM nowadays, or I should say DIMM slots, is they'll make this one will no longer open. It will just be one side that opens. That is normal. And on this motherboard, these don't come out, because usually on motherboards, you know, both sides you unclick them. Nope. On modern motherboards, that's something they're starting to do away with, because say you want to upgrade your RAM while your graphics card's in, you have to take the graphics card out because you can't get the fucking retention lever out. So that's something they've done away with now. And they make it to where you just open it on one side, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean, we went over this board. I'm going to take high quality pictures and overlay them, because that will be better than me trying to get zoomed in and everything. I'll be taking high quality pictures of everything, and yeah, I mean, the board, I don't see any problems. Oh, I was going to show you one thing that I did notice. On this chip down here, you can probably already see it already. I don't know if that's just discoloration or what that is. I'll be taking a high quality overlay picture. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to be confident everything works. And it's not even going to be a fucking issue. It's probably just, I don't know if it's just something that's just on there and needs to be wiped off, or, you know, could be anything. Of course, we have our X99A Workstation with our battery, which is going to be KTS, of course, right? Look at that. Ooh. I'm just giving you, going over the board. But yeah, if there's, oh. Is that another fan header? I think that's another sys fan header. Yes, it is. So we have another 4-pin sys fan header hanging out right there. Anyway, I think I've gone over this board long enough, dragged this video out long enough. There it is. I have all the other parts coming. I have a lot of parts coming, the CPU, the RAM. We'll be doing a proper video on that, and that'll be fun. Like I said, for a refurb board, I don't see any issues. I mean, the board looks like brand new. I'm confident there's no issues. It's flawless. We're going to stay confident. This thing don't have no problems, right? Perfectly fine. There it is, guys. The MSI X99A Workstation board. Nobody's never made a video about it. Until now. This board, very scarce to get. And also the guy, the former MSI employee that's an eBay seller, he did tell me if they get more of these boards, he will let me know, because I will be buying 2 more of these boards. One for my brother Abe, and one for my friend Tony. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching it. Until next time, we'll see you back here when we get some RAM, and we get some CPU, and we get some heatsink, and we get some funness going on, right? This is going to be a fun build. I'm glad I'll finally have a desktop computer. It's going to be fun. Have a good one, guys.